Alright, we're back. We got some new bolts for the engine. We're going to mount it up to the engine stand with those, and then we're going to start tearing it down and see what we find out. Took two different Home Depots, but we got our bolts. These are 7/16 by 14, and they're like 3 inches long. So these will thread into the bell housing mount holes on the engine block. We'll clamp on the stand, and then we should be good to go.
Alright, the plate's mounted on. I used a bunch of washers. That's the other thing. Always make sure you get a bunch of washers when you're trying to do this, so you can space out your bolts properly. And now we'll lift the engine up and try and put it in the stand and see what happens.
The stand is all attached. I'll lower it back down and see how it takes some weight. So I'll torque up the bolts one more time just to make sure everything's on tight, and then we'll set her down and see what happens. Alright, she's resting on the stand. I don't know. So it looks alright. I definitely would not want to spend any time underneath it. So, while we're at it, alright, good morning. Welcome back to the shop. So, we've had the engine sit overnight, we had the heat run, and a dehumidifier to help everything dry off. And what we've got to do now is drain the coolant out of the block. We've got to get, I believe, this plug out. I think there's one on each side to the engines. So we're going to pull the water pump off now. See what kind of big loose bag it says. Oh, hardly a trickle. Alright, there's the water pump. Alright. Leave the PCV for now because we want that. But I think they'll be able to get rid of most of this stuff. So obviously we're deleting some of the old emission stuff that the truck doesn't even have anymore. And then we got this mess.
So our exhaust manifold, definitely a little cracked here. It's two separate pieces. It's this air injection system that's actually holding it together. So I drilled out the plug so we can at least get the coolant out of the engine, and then I'll have to figure out how to actually get that plug out. I need to get a bigger drill out. For now, I'll keep working at it. Maybe get the other side and then keep hitting it with WD-40 or PB Blaster or something. We got the engine, or the intake manifold bolts off. We're gonna see if we can pull it now.
Okay.
Woo.
That's gross looking.
Yeah, there's some sludge. So this is the coolant that flows through these chambers.
Oh my
looks
goodness.
like. I think. Are they? Where's that intake? I don't know. Either way, it's nasty.
It's very gross.
Let's pull this over to the
Workbench?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got the intake off and it's just pretty nasty in here. There's a kind of rusty goo ball in this tray. And then the actual intake are just like chunks of, I don't know, gooped up antifreeze or whatever flows through these. Maybe it's just rust and gas mixed and sat for years. Either way, really gross. So those are the push rods. They go up into the head. I think it probably would run better without that in there. But yeah, this is pretty gross. We can pull off these valve covers next, and then I need to probably do a little reading to make sure I can pull the head properly. I've never done anything with a push rod before, so I'm assuming that you just pull the head off and it's good to go, but we'll check out the manual and make sure. Let's see what we got. Oh jeez. This is pretty gooped up. Really thick sludge up here. These are big springs. Yeah. Don't need that. So do I have to go and like do something with every push rod to actually get the head off the engine, or does the push rod just like pull through? Either way, this looks heavy. That's a lot of valves. So we got double that. So there is some oil up here, which I think is good. I think that means that there's oil on top of every valve that we've got. Let's see if I can turn this over a bit. So maybe that's TDC on the crank, who knows. But this will pull this guy off as well. So we replaced this valve cover gasket earlier in the year because this one was leaking really badly. And we figured it'd be worth not having it leak. That was before we thought we were going to do the whole engine rebuild situation. I am very curious to see what's in the oil pan. I think no matter what we do, it's going to make a mess, turning the engine upside down. So far this is about what I expected to find. I don't think that's doing anything. Oh, there it goes, it's starting to move.
Yeah, I see a little movement.
Alright. So we got both heads off, and now the engine's a little bit lighter and easier to move around, so we flipped it over and we're pulling the oil pan now. As you can see, there's a lot of these bolts. This is going to take like all day. Not really all day, because it's almost night.
It's almost time for mac and cheese.
Yeah. Zach and Faith's fantastic food vlog. Why don't we vlog more food? This is the grand reveal. Every instruction for everything says don't use a screwdriver to pry. And I'm pretty sure every single person uses a screwdriver to pry.
That was a good sound.
Ooh, beautiful.
Cue heavenly music.
There she is. So this is what we were all wondering about. So this is our oil pickup, and there's definitely a lot of clogged goop on there. And then here's our crank doing its thing. There's a lot of oil in here still. I think this is gonna be a mess.
Yeah, typical.
Now we're at the part that we're like well out of my knowledge zone. So I'm like, yeah.
This is a thing.
We'll open it up and see how it looks, but now we're looking at it and I have no idea what I'm looking at, so. Some sludge, alright.
Big.
So I think this guy here is cleaning. And who knows where else we have goop stuck. Pull off the gasket.
Ooh, yummy.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one to clean up. There's the crumbles.
Does anybody know why they use cork? If you do, tell us.
Is it actually cork? Like, it looks like it's cork, but I just don't believe that someone would be like, yeah,
It's hard
let's cut the shape of an oil pan out of a tree. It's gotta be artificial or something. So I guess we'll have to like do some learning on how to find out if this is good or bad in here and how to clean it out. I think the more important thing to clean is going to be all this sludge. Yeah.
Ooh, yummy.
That's pretty thick, like metallic looking sludge in there. That's what worries me, is that it looks like there's metal dust in here. It's between the slime and then the chunks of stuff. So it's gonna be a fun one. And we're gonna have to replace our rear main seal over here as well, and this bearing in the end. Almost, yeah, 'cause that's got like literal needle bearings falling out of it. I gotta do it. Like waited my whole life for this. All right, the moment you have all been waiting for. I did already pull this off and take a look before I filmed this, so we're cheating, but
So as you can see, this bearing, almost the entire inner babbitt surface has been taken off. There's just a little bit of silver up in the corner here and here. The entire rest of the thing is just down to the copper. There's a lot of scoring. Yeah. And on the crank there's a little bit of scoring as well. So we're probably gonna have to figure out what we're doing there. I don't think a new crank is in the budget for this project. So we might have to do some research and see what our options are. But the bearings will definitely have to get replaced.
It's a lot of damage. Hot damn.
Yesterday we found out that the bearings were basically destroyed in this thing. These cranks are all scored up nicely, enough that you can see them, you can feel it with your nails. And I started looking into getting a crank reground, but the more I looked into it and realized for $125 to get the crank done, plus however long that takes, and then the $40 to $60 for the undersized bearings to match, it's starting to get kind of pricey. So I went on AutoZone, Advanced Auto, and poked around a little bit and found complete remanufactured crankshafts with matched bearings. And after the 20% off code, I think it was like $140. So we ended up doing that. So we started pulling off everything so that we can get the crank out, and then hopefully tomorrow, when it's supposed to show up, put the new one in.
So I was looking at the pistons as I was setting them down on our cloth, and I noticed this nice big crack right here, and it's all the way through. I don't know if you can see the inside on one of them. So then I started inspecting the others, and more cracks. I don't know if you can see that. There's also one that has a broken
Yeah, there's a broken ring.
Yeah, this one has a broken ring. Okay, so we're gonna need new pistons, I think.
We're quickly running out of garage space.
Ah!
Yeah, we gotta put all the pistons somewhere. So they'll get laid out here, and then we gotta move stuff. We are literally storing things inside the cab of the truck, the bed of the truck, under the truck, the other bay. I guess next up is the dining room table.
No,
All we eat is pizza and leftovers anyway.
it's not true. In order to have the leftovers, you have to make the food.
Where do the leftovers come from? Leftover cereal?
Leftover cereal.
so I'm taking care not to scratch the cam lobes, but this is awfully difficult. There we go, there's our camshaft. Oh, interesting. So this one, it's pretty meshed up. Pulled out the camshaft, and you can see there's actually quite a bit of pitting on a lot of these lobes. Most of them look like that. Probably was whatever was just poking up the most. Didn't have oil on it when it sat for years. So maybe we need to look into getting a different cam. We got new lifters, so I'm not gonna keep all these organized. I guess you're supposed to keep them like in the correct location when you're replacing stuff and you're putting them back in, because they wear to match the cam. But it looks like we're probably putting in a new cam too, so it'll all be new. Alright, so we're back inside now in the kitchen. So we finished tearing down the engine. You saw we Found a lot of stuff that was wrong with it. We found cracked pistons, found broken piston rings. Pretty much all of the bearings were just non-existent, completely worn away. And that's definitely what we found when we did the first oil change before we started kind of running the truck, was that original bearing material, and then every oil change we did after that we just found more and more until there's pretty much no more bearing material left. The camshaft was rusted and pitted, so that's going to get replaced. So next up for the build, what we're going to do is clean everything up, try and work anything that needs to be fixed, and then we're going to replace the crankshaft. We're going to get new pistons, we'll have to mount those to the rods. We'll get new lifters and all that in. The head looks pretty good, but we're going to have to replace just the rubber kind of valve umbrella shields, because those are just dry rotted out. And then we'll just rebuild the whole thing, get it cleaned up, painted, and hopefully it'll run really nice. There we go. Oh yeah. If the brown sugar holds its shape when you plop it in, you know it's going to be good.